This is TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And the State of the Saints podcast is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Over 2 million men worldwide choose Manscaped for all their below-the-waist needs. For those that loved the Lawnmower 3.0, well, I got news for you. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. The new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim all through additional guards lengths, sizes 1 through 4. And looks-wise, it's sleek with a two-tone matte and gloss finish, even features a hot foil stamp, black chrome Manscaped logo. Show your more off loud and proud. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code State of Saints, and you will save 20% off of the Lawnmower 4.0 as well as other Manscaped items. That's manscaped.com. Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And I have a special guest with me here on the State of the Saints podcast. From ESPN, we have anchorman Stan Verrett. Hey, how you doing, Stan?
Good, man. Good to be with you, TJ.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I just want to go ahead and get started. A lot of fans of the Who Dat Nation excited to hear your take about the New Orleans Saints. Great feedback when I said that you were going to be on. The first question is, how does it feel being from New Orleans and born and raised there? And, now you're the anchor man for ESPN. What does that mean to you?
Growing up, once I realized I wasn't going to play in the NFL, which was my initial goal when I was very young, I just wanted to find a way to be around sports, to cover sports, because it's what I've always liked most as a pastime. And so I wanted to try to find a way to make it a career. And, my skills were writing and speaking more so than running and catching, which is what I really wanted to do. But I got to St. Augustine High School, and I found out what real talent looks like when I went out for the football team there. And so, it's been a dream come true. I mean, I've never really worked a day in my life. I've always enjoyed my career.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to watch you, every single night on ESPN, doing great work. And I mean, you're definitely a motivation to a lot of people out there. So we appreciate that. And, just also upon that, just being from New Orleans, being a Saints fan, the Saints are making some moves. Of course, we know about the retirement of Drew Brees. And what has Drew Brees meant to you as a Saints fan?
Well, he was a transformative player for the franchise. The two most important things you have to get right in the NFL to be successful are head coach and quarterback. Mm-hmm. And with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, the Saints have been very fortunate in that regard over the last decade and a half. It's tough to see him walk away, but, Father Time is undefeated. We all knew that this time was going to come at some point. And, it was Drew Brees had the right to pick the time himself to go out when he felt like he was done. And so now he's done that. But I mean, his place in Saints history is secure. He's the most important player in the history of the franchise. He won a Super Bowl. I think with a few things falling different ways, he could have had 2, possibly 3. That 2011 team was maybe the best team of his tenure there. But he is leaving with a Lombardi Trophy, which is important for his career. Important to Saints fans to know that they've actually been there. I have the Times-Picayune hanging up on my wall, the sports page and the front page from the day after the Super Bowl. So, I like a lot of Saints fans. I mean, I really appreciate everything that he meant to the franchise.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, he left us with so many great memories. And I often say he just changed the narrative of what people think about Saints football. I mean, if you grew up in the 90s like I did, the Saints weren't very good. I mean, you had little spurts of success with Coach Mora and, of course, the Dome Patrol, but you have a large collection of Saints fans that probably don't remember the Saints not being very good. And it has a lot to do with Drew Brees and what he's brought to the table.
Try the 80s on for size. Those of us who were around in the 80s before Coach Mora. It really got crazy. I mean, I was talking with his son, Jim Mora Jr. In the studio a few months ago, and I was telling him, how much his dad meant to the franchise because, I mean, it was totally barren wasteland before Coach Mora got there. And then, Coach Payton has picked up from where he left the franchise. And so things are much better now than they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, and I was fortunate enough because I have a grandmother, I mean, who's been a Saints fan since the expansion. So I can just remember like sitting on her living room floor listening to the Saints. That's one of the reasons I got into broadcasting because, I mean, at that time, the Saints weren't as good as they were. So only thing I used to listen to was Jim Henderson. So those were the moments that I remember. And I kind of just remember like some of like the Jim Mora era. I was a little bit young at that particular time, but before we move on from Drew Brees, is there a moment that stands out among the rest as a Saints fan to you?
Well, I remember that moment of Brees holding up his son after the Super Bowl win with the confetti falling, and his son had the headphones on. I mean, it's an iconic picture, and it symbolized the Saints finally getting there, winning it all. So a moment all of us have waited for so long.
Oh yeah.
We finally actually saw it happen, and to see him reveling in that moment with somebody who was really special to him, his son, just was really a great image to capture. Yeah. Because so many of us were also reveling in that moment.
Yeah, I love that moment so much, Dan, is because like when he's holding up his son and the confetti is falling, it's almost like it's just him and his son right there, and me having a 2-year-old son, I can just, think about us playing and me lifting him up. And it just feels like the world is not around you. It's just that particular moment. And for him to like share that moment with his son, I mean, that's something that's definitely iconic, when it comes to the whole Super Bowl run. I mean, it was just absolutely exciting. But, the Saints now, they have some choices they need to make, especially at the quarterback position, one of the most important positions on the field. You got Jameis Winston, who we see working really hard out there. The footage is out there, him working with wide receivers. And you also have Taysom Hill, who had an opportunity to play when Drew was hurt in a couple games last season. What do you see from both guys, and what are you expecting going into the 2021 season? What do these two guys bring to the table?
So I'm not really sure how this is going to play out. I think when you look at Jameis Winston, you have a guy who was a Heisman Trophy winner, former #1 draft pick, a guy who obviously has the skill to play quarterback at a high level in the NFL. The obvious concern is the interceptions from his last season in Tampa Bay. But he had a dreadful offensive line there that season. He's running for his life a lot. And I think scheme and coaching and a better offensive line can be a big help in preventing that with the Saints. I think it's a tremendous gift to have a quarterback with his pedigree just sitting right there for you as you transition from Drew Brees. Now, Taysom Hill, I believe, is going to get a shot. He's earned the right to get a shot in training camp and in OTAs this offseason, in the preseason, and we'll see. But I think the most likely situation is probably Taysom Hill continuing in the role that he's played, sort of a jack of all trades, and a change of pace quarterback with Jameis Winston occupying the full-time role. Now, I could be totally wrong there. We could see a situation in training camp where Taysom Hill takes over the starting job. I mean, we don't know. We're going to have to see. But if you ask me what I think is the most likely scenario, I think that's it. I think Jameis is a tremendous talent at quarterback. And I think with the complementary players that the Saints have on offense, with the offensive line that they have, with Sean Payton's scheme, I just think this offense could really be explosive in a way that it hasn't been in the last few years.
Jameis brings a different dynamic and something that we haven't seen in a while, like you just alluded to. And I just think that Jameis wants to resurrect his career. I mean, you look at some of the things that he's doing. I mean, it tells you everything that you need to know about a guy that wants to change what a lot of people think about him. And, you know, I mean, I like the fact that he's embraced it. I mean, you see the video of him talking at a football camp. He's talking about how, you know, people are laughing at him and stuff like that. He's not concerned about that. He's trying to work as hard as he possibly can. And he's really putting forth that effort. And as far as Taysom Hill, I mean, we know what he can bring to the table. He's a fierce competitor. He works really hard. He really wants to be the absolute best that he can possibly be for the team. So it should be very interesting in training camp. You know, and you talked a little bit about Sean Payton. We talked about him, but Sean Payton, this is his first time, you know, as the Saints head coach without Drew Brees. What is it about Sean Payton that it just seems like he can just get the best out of any quarterback he comes into contact with? I mean, you think about when Drew Brees a couple of years ago, I think he had an oblique injury, and Luke McCown came in, threw for 300 yards. They almost won that game. Teddy Bridgewater, 5 games in a row, and then you see Taysom Hill winning 3 games and losing 1. So what is it about Sean Payton to you that makes him so special as a head coach?
I think he has an innate feel for offensive football in the NFL. I think he understands the skill sets of the players that he puts in position, and he puts them in position to succeed. Doesn't ask them to do things that they're not capable of doing. Understands how the pieces fit together, and how to utilize the entirety of the offense to make the quarterback successful, and how to utilize the quarterback to make the offense successful.
All right.
I think he's a gifted play caller. He has an understanding for the vulnerabilities of different defensive schemes and how to attack them. I think he's up there among the best offensive minds, not just of this generation, but I think ever in the history of the league. And I think the production bears that out. If you look at the Saints' offensive production since he's been there, there's just not a whole lot of argument about his skill as a play caller and as an offensive tactician.
Yeah. One thing I like about Sean Payton is he utilized the strengths of the players that he has. Like you look at some of the great, like down the field receivers like Devin Henderson, Robert Meacham. He always put these guys in positions to win their matchups. Guys like Willie Snead and Lance Moore were more of your slot receivers. I mean, he did and has done an outstanding job at getting the best out of players, using their strengths and utilizing it. And I think that's what makes him special. And he's not afraid to say, okay, this isn't working, and look at himself and change some things around. That's one thing I definitely respect from Sean Payton. But at the Saints as a whole, going into the 2021 season, Stan, what are you expecting to see from the New Orleans Saints? Post Drew Brees, what are you expecting? The same level of success? Are you looking at something a little bit different? What are you expecting as a Saints fan?
Well, people who know me and people who know my outlook on the Saints in general, and just like I'm an optimist by nature.
Right.
I'm always looking at the bright side, and I look at Alvin Kamara still there.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas is still there.
Mm-hmm.
You have some young receivers who are coming along. Adam Troutman shows a lot of promise at tight end. I mean, the offensive line, it has been solid. I mean, the question mark is obviously quarterback, but I really don't see particularly Jameis Winston as that much of a question mark, because you have to start with physical ability. Mm-hmm. Does this player have the physical tools to do what you're asking him to do? And I don't think there's any question about that with Jameis Winston. Yeah. So then it becomes, okay, so what kind of what kind of a scheme do you put him in? What kind of offense do you put him in? What do you ask him to do with those tools? And I think, again, that comes back to coaching. I think, the defense, the Saints have become as much a defensive team as an offensive team over the past couple of years. The evolution of the defense it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Demario Davis, key among the players, I think, who's really solidified that group. I mean, Cam Jordan's been a model of consistency.
Yep.
And then you have players like Lattimore and the return of Malcolm Jenkins on the back end. So they have difference makers at every level on offense and defense. And, I look at the personnel and, I say I don't see any reason why there should be any drop-off. I mean, Drew Brees is Drew Brees. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot, no doubt. But I think Sean Payton can recreate, or I should say he can create success, I believe, with the Jameis Winston Taysom Hill combination as well.
You look at this Saints team, even though Drew Brees, I mean, he was the unsung leader of the team. You got some guys that have become emerging leaders. Like when Drew Brees went down, who was in the huddle? It was Demario Davis. You got Cam Jordan, you got Teron Armstead, and you got Malcolm Jenkins. Those guys not only like top leaders on the Saints team, but top leaders in NFL when you start looking at some of the work that they're doing. So these guys, I agree with you. I don't see a huge drop off coming in the 2021 season as everybody probably anticipate. With the loss of Drew, and it has a lot to do with the dynamic and the chemistry and the locker room that they created there. And finally, Stan, look, I gotta ask you this because all the listeners from St. Aug High School gonna hurt me if I don't. But this isn't too much of a Saints question. But there were two St. Aug graduates that played in the Super Bowl: the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and also Leonard Fournette. Even though the Saints were in the Super Bowl and it was their rivals, how proud were you as a St. Aug alum to see two guys from your high school play on the biggest stage?
It was really great to see. I mean, they're both great young men. I've gotten to know both of them somewhat over the years. Spent a little bit more time with Leonard than I did with Tyrann. But the interactions that I've had with them really make me proud of who they are, and then watching their evolution. I mean, they both have had their struggles, but they've been able to overcome their struggles to get to where they are now. Yeah. And one of the things I'm really proud of is the men that St. Augustine produces. Yeah. And we've had a fantastic year with the feature that 60 Minutes did on the band, the Grammy nominees and Grammy winners that we saw on that same night that the 60 Minutes piece ran. And then Leonard and Tyrann in the Super Bowl, and then the basketball team winning the state championship. So it's a great time to be a Purple Knight. It always is. I'm really proud of those two young men. I look forward to their continued achievements. Tyrann is on a trajectory where if he continues, for a while, I mean, we could be talking about a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
If he continues on this trajectory and puts some more solid years behind him. Don't want to put any pressure on him. But I don't think I could put any more pressure on him than he puts on himself, because
that's true.
He's focused on being great, and I think Leonard is too. This was an important season for him with the Bucks, to reestablish his career, to be a part of a winning program. And look, they're in the NFC South, and it hurts to see, and hurts to see him playing and winning in Tampa Bay. But he's a Purple Knight, and that always runs deep with us. And so I'm happy for his success.
Stan, thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. We really do appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you on ESPN, and let everybody know how they can reach out to you, get in touch with you.
At Stan Verrett on Twitter. That's mostly what I use. Have a lot of great interactions with Who Dat Nation on Twitter, and looking forward to another season. I usually get on during games and after games and just kind of chop it up with the fans. And we have a good time. So Who Dat Nation, I'm there at Stan Verrett on Twitter, and I'm looking forward to the season. Thank you for having me, TJ. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. You take care.
All right. Who Dat?